it needs to be 50-50 if it has to, or we need to share, because gone are those days where women are sitting at home being housewives, cleaning and cooking. We are also going to work. And if a man can't pay, a woman must pay.
Built that certain table. If in our relationship everything is based on 50-50, then it shall be. And if our relationship is built on I'll take care of the financial parts, you keep the home warm, that's how it shall be. Because basically it's what we define as our relationship.
Growing up made me realize that, let's take this whole idea of the table, what you bring to the table. Let's move it from not what you bring to the table, but how you serve at the table. May I please have that sauce?
Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another thought-provoking conversation with Speak Your Truth Academy. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we're digging into a question that sounds simple but carries a lot of weight. So, what do you bring to the table conversation? It's a phrase we hear everywhere in relationship, friendships, and social media, and especially social media. It's been a debate over a long period of time. But behind those words are deep assumptions about worth, gender, money, emotional support, and power. So we'll dig into that today. We're not here to judge, but we're here to learn. I'm just going to briefly give my panel an opportunity to introduce themselves. What's the name? Where you from? What do you do? And then we'll begin with our conversation. So you can unmute yourself, Caesar. Let's go with you first, and then Monvi.
Okay, I'm Caesar, but most people know me as Jimmy Caesar. How that came about, at school I was called Dumi. People know me as Dumi. Then when I started working, people started calling me Caesar. That's my first name. So education-wise, I'm sound engineering. And when it comes to career-wise, I am a broker, which is betting. It's betting broker, casino works, where we are sports analysts. Then right now, currently, I finally finished my book, Family Through the Storm. So I'm an upcoming author. So yeah,
Okay.
That's who I am.
Right. Okay, interesting. I also love writing, so we should definitely open a book club. Monli.
I'm Monli, known as Shakes, I'm based in Rivoli, and for most, where I got my name from was actually from soccer. Yeah, and my other name is actually the orchestra because I tend to make things happen. So yeah, I'm hoping that we guys can have a good chat about most of the things, specifically about the conversation at hand. And yeah, should there be more questions to be asked about me and where I come from, my background, anybody is welcome to shout and ask.
Okay, so Monli, I'm gonna need you to be louder than that, but let's start our conversation. So I've always said it's important for us to ensure that before we ask this question, we are able to define it define it for ourselves, interpret, sort of express how we interpret it before we can actually just dive into that conversation. So that's my point of departure right now. What comes to mind when you guys hear what do you bring to the table? How do you interpret it? How do you translate it? And how do you define it, rather? I'm going to start with you, Caesar.
I joined the panel because it's a very interesting conversation. And it's one that is maybe kind of misunderstood or maybe has a lot of different narratives to it. And on my end, I think, like you said, we first have to define what is the table that we're talking about. Yes, we're talking about a relationship, but what is the table? And what kind of table are we talking about? And then thirdly is what's the purpose of the table? You know, because sometimes we focus so much on what do you bring on the table. And what I've seen when you look at social media and stuff, it's mostly about presentation. You know, I might be talking about a dining table where we share memories, we share thoughts, we share goals together. Then I meet up with a person who's talking about a display table. They only care about the materialistic stuff. Where
Mm,
how do we look in public? How do we present ourselves in public? So that's
mm,
why I say we need to dive deep in what is the table and what's the purpose of the table. And on my end, if I had to put it, the table is basically the relationship, you know, because you
okay.
might find what's confusing a lot of us today with the table. When I say we focus so much on the presentation, we find today, like in the olden days, the table was all about two people coming together and putting their lives together and building their small family. Today, the
Mm,
table is about, like the question, what do you bring to the table? Are you educated? You know, how much do you earn? What's your
mm,
profession? Because when we go back again to those three questions, what is the table? What's the purpose of the table? What kind of table are we talking about? You find a person, are you working? Yes, I'm working. What kind of
mm,
job are you doing? You said, are you a senior or junior? So do you understand that we put all these little things and forget about the actual relationship, you know?
mm,
So,
mm.
so for me, I could say if we can define the table as it's a relationship,
Okay.
what value you bring to my life, and what value I bring to your life. If I had to explain myself, if you had to ask me what you bring to the table, I bring emotional intelligence. And if you had to tell someone that emotional intelligence, they'll be like, but do you work? Do you see how it gets overlooked? And
Sure.
emotional intelligence is the most crucial and biggest, and I can say it's an important part of a relationship because we are faced with gender-based violence. It's because of lack of emotional intelligence. You know,
Right.
we are faced with a lot in life that if a person was, you know, he had emotional intelligence, or let me just say, let me not get deep into it because we're just trying to break it down. I'll give
Mm,
Monty a 10, but uh, I can say on my side, we focus mostly on the outward than on what's happening in the inside. So for me, if we can unpack what is the table, I think the three questions, I think you wrote them down. You know, if we can unpack that, then we can start talking. No, yeah.
okay. What about you, Monji?
Caesar has highlighted that in most aspects, whatever you bring to the table is kind of as what should be the table. So the first thing about the table should be actually analyzed as to what are we actually referring to when we're talking about the table itself. Are we talking about
Mm,
masculinity? Are we talking about the dominance? Are we talking about, maybe some might say, the head of the family? What are we talking about when we bring all those perspectives together to actually say this is the table? What does the table actually entail? Does it
mm,
actually look and focus on one side of aspects whenever whoever actually brings the topic to the table and says to us, okay, my understanding of the table is this, that, and the other. And then we can then clarify and actually stick to that basis of what do they understand when actually talking about the table itself. So
mm,
for now, I think it's vast. I think now it's broad. And then we need to narrow it down to whatever aspect that we actually looking at it from each and every individual's
right.
perspective to actually the person that's actually asking the question. To what do you bring to the
Mm,
table? So I think that's my to learn to today. Yeah.
okay. Hello, panelist. How are
Hi
you?
guys, how are you? Hi guys, how are you?
We are good, thank you. Could you just please briefly introduce yourself and then you just found us right in time for the first question, actually.
Okay, sorry I'm late. Okay, ke nna Ntwetse Mogopi, and nice to meet you guys.
Ndoetsi, is that
Ntwetse,
how you
yes.
Ndoetsi? Okay. So basically, what I was asking the guys is how they define the "what do you bring to the table" concept, right? And I highlighted the importance of how you define it and interpret it personally before you can start having conversations about it. So for you, what comes to mind when you share the concept? What do you bring to the table? How do you define that?
In a relationship, ne?
I mean, if
Sorry.
you yes.
So how I would define that is, if I'm with a person, what do I bring to them? I mean, what are the things that they would say, okay, this person is in my life and we are like together. And maybe let's say I love them. Do they really love me? What makes me love them? What are those reasons?
Hmm.
I think, yeah.
Okay. All right. You guys spoke about the table. I think someone said, is it a dining table? Is it a, in terms of sort of expanding on a partnership, a dining table would imply that we are in this together, we are sharing. How do you guys think we can sort of shift the focus from it being a transactional concept to it being how you guys have defined it? Obviously, viewing the table as the relationship and understanding the table is what are you actually bringing to the relationship. How do you feel we can shift that focus from it being more transactional to something that, if the question is asked, the answer could be emotional intelligence and emotional maturity? Let's start with you, Mondli.
I think we can narrow it down to expectations, because I think
Okay.
that's what actually clicks whenever one asks about the table itself. So your expectation, my expectation, do they align? Yes, no. Do they Are they going to actually take us further, a step further? Yes, no. All those are questions that we need to step. But I think the first one that we need to answer is expectations. What are you expecting out of this table? Does it align
Mm,
with your moral integrity? Does it align with the person that you are? Is it the same thing that you'd actually sit down and say tomorrow that this is basically what I'm looking for as a person that's coming into this table, that's gonna actually be sitting in this table, that's gonna actually be dining in this table, that's actually looking to actually make this table stable enough for it not to fall in the near future because of many things that it's going to be carrying within that space of the relationship. So
mm.
I think it boils down to expectations.
Okay. Doetsy?
I would agree with Monley, because if the expectations are not met, I think both sides would need to understand the expectation. What's expected from me? What's expected from you? And am I meeting that? Are you meeting that? Do we agree in what we're expecting?
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. Sizwe?
Okay, for me, you know, expectations, achievements. I think those are the things that disturb the table. Because
Okay.
first of all, in a relationship, when we speak about the table, when I said the relationship is the table, we build the table together. We craft the table together. Because now, if you're going to say, what do you bring to the table? And we talk about expectations and what you're expecting from me, it's more like king and queen. You coming to my kingdom, and what are you bringing to my kingdom? And when you come to someone's life with that mentality, the person will always want to receive. And the moment you don't provide or you don't give back what they're expecting from you, they feel
Mm,
that they have to replace you. Like, for instance, today a man loses his job, he loses his partner, you know. Now you are making this table collapse because I'm the only one who works here and you don't work. And in the olden days, we say men are providers and women and they protect. So how can I be a woman and be a provider at my house? So you see that when we focus on expectations, it's like we move away from what the relationship is for, mentally, spiritually. That does not expectations most of the time. It's something that you work on yourself as a person, and you give back. Let me say you attract what you are, you know. And the table most of the time when you bring expectations, let's be honest. Today's life, women have better job opportunities. You know, women get paid much better than a black man. So if you're gonna say expectations and focus it on the narrative of the olden days, it won't match. It won't match because today you find a woman earning twice what a man earns. So already that writes a man off. So expectations, I think, is just glittery on what the relationship is about on my end. I think we should look past expectations
Okay.
because, yeah.
Okay. It's interesting when you say in modern times it has shifted in terms of earning and who earns more and whatnot, but still there's still that expectation that the man has to be doing more around the house. I'm interested to find out from you guys, in your opinion, who does this question pressure more? Who's more under pressured by this question? Who feels the most bias? And that obviously we just would like to hear why you feel that way, or if you feel both genders are. I would be interested to know why you feel that way. Ndoetsi?
Okay, so I was about to actually raise my hand. So I think how Caesar take it, I think he takes it like on a financial side. It's not only on the financial side. When we mean expectations, we mean I expect you to respect me, to care for me, to love me, like to listen to me. Not really like about money, you must give me money now, you can't provide, we have to break up or also. So I think it goes many more ways than financially. I don't know if I'm right, Caesar, you can correct me.
No, it's not a matter of me correcting you, but let's be honest with each other here. Would you date a broke guy? Let's just be honest.
It depends. Obviously, we'll grow together, we'll hustle, we'll try until we make it. So I wouldn't
But
mind dating a broke
at
guy.
the age right
Because then
now,
we'll have
I don't
to
know
like
how old you
start somewhere.
are. Okay.
Or have to like build something. If we have to open, let's say, a small Ngana business, whatever we can afford, then we'll try and grow together. If we have to apply for jobs, we'll do it together. We'll find it together. Because if you find it and you are my partner, then I'm good as well.
So
I
what
don't know.
happens?
Okay.
Okay,
I
sorry.
think Caesar, you can actually now move into answering the question I just asked about
Okay.
who's more under pressured by this question, and what biases are there with regards to it.
I think men are more pressured when it
Okay.
comes to this question because I'd like for one to be like, let's be honest. I think the rules there say we need to be honest. Like, honestly speaking, men are more pressured because if you look at what men have to a traditional man, if you look at what a man has to be, you know, I wouldn't say with I never got the name. Who was it's Monty and
Ndoetsi.
Wait.
Doisy. Yes, Doisy. If we're honest today, what you expect from men, you expect a man to be a traditional man, right? And when we speak about a traditional man, we speak about a man who's fertile, a man who can give you babies. And the moment a man cannot do that, that's about 20 points minus from that man. And secondly, a man who has his own place, depending on age, a man who can look after himself, you know. And if a man is staying with his mother or staying with his parents, that's another point off. you know. But if you had to turn the tables around, you find a woman who does not work, a woman who stays with her parents, a woman who can't look after herself, a man can still provide for that and never looks beyond what they can do. But with women, if we have to be honest, you do look at those things. And those things kind of make that man not man enough to be a man. So the table does not exist in that man. I don't know if I'm still
Okay.
with you.
Yeah, I totally agree
Monthly.
with you, Caesar. I think, sorry, yeah, sorry to cut you short, Caesar. I think I totally agree with you when coming to that, because when you look at the expectation that is actually set up on the men in order for them to be defined as a man, kind of raises more eyebrows than when a woman is to be defined as a woman. Because with us, it comes with expectation of you providing, you actually being that person that comes with every solution that there is to come to whenever it comes to financial burden in the house or in the family. And if the tables were actually turned, you'd actually be labeled in a certain name or in a certain um, cluster of men that he's leeching off of you. But if it's a woman, it's never gonna be raised like that. He's leeching off of you. He's the guy that you're not supposed to be dating at this moment in time. You deserve better. And with us guys, we've taken the burden of actually raising a family from up scratch until the family is actually solid and good. And we don't count the things that we tend to do whenever coming to relationships, and actually having that point of view of providing, with certain, let me actually not actually make it broad, but let me say with certain types of women, you find that classification of I wouldn't date a broke guy. The guy is still a guy, he's
Mm.
still referred to as a man. There's some people that actually respect that guy in the community, then call him a man because of certain statutes that he upholds. But because of you actually want him to be a different character whenever coming to your expectations and narrative of who bears more, because you're actually looking for certain something. And if it's not met, then the man is a failure. So I think we as guys actually feel it more whenever coming to, let me specifically raise it to dating, because it's been narrowed
Okay.
down to, are you financially stable? Are you actually going to be able to provide for me? Are you actually going to be the person that actually takes me out of this place? Are you going to be the person who's actually going to be able to attend the children's school fees, this, that, and the other in the near future? And if you don't tick all those boxes, you actually sitting with a score of -1. So yeah.
Mm. Ndwezi, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, yes. So I think the ones that are pressured the most is guys, because in the modern day, I've seen a couple of people where their boyfriends or their husbands loses their jobs, then it's almost like I can't anymore. I have to find my way out. So
Mm.
that says to me, yeah. But then when it's ladies who are losing their jobs, for example, like life goes on as normal.
Mm.
Unlike when it's a guy who loses the job, for example.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, and how do you guys think social media has contributed in clustering this question in sort of with all the perception, the assumptions, and expectation imposed with what we are absorbing from social media? How do you guys think social media has played a role in the clustering of this question and what it means and what it should mean? Um, I'm gonna start with you, Caesar.
You know, like I said, upcoming author, what I've learned about writing and life, it taught me about life and social media. I've learned that life is fiction, you know. It becomes factual when it is weighed because the only thing that is a fact in life is we know that a person gets born, a person lives, and a person dies.
Mm.
Everything that happens within that, it's something that's been created. As much as education is created, that when you're educated, you become successful. And it does not mean when you're educated, you're smart. You know, it does not mean when you're a street kid, you are street smart. You know, it does not mean when you look glamorous, you are rich. So it's all a narrative that social media has drawn. and has placed to people as the final product. So when you look at social media, you find happy couples everywhere. You find glamorous couples everywhere. You find fancy cars everywhere. You don't find in social media where a couple is building together, where a couple is struggling together, because that is seen as embarrassment or something that you cannot show people. That's why people today, you only see how, you don't see how they got where they are, you see when they're there, you know. And this thing has even influenced our families where when you're struggling, everyone moves themselves away from you. They distance themselves because social media has created this thing that I don't want to be next to people who have not made it. You are what you place yourself around. Do you realize how social media has corrupted, I can say, the black man's mind? Because we only see this in black communities where a man who's respected is a man who's glamorous and a man who's flashy. So social media has drawn this narrative of a good person is a glamorous person. You know, struggle is for the lazy, struggle is for the uneducated. And there are people who are educated who are struggling, but they won't show you that. You know, social media will show you an educated person is a rich person, and a happy couple is a rich couple.
Okay. Monthly?
I think the narrative behind it, in mostly, it's shown the glitz and glam and the supposed peak of the relationship. I think the narrative behind it, in mostly, it's shown the glitz and glam and the supposed peak of the relationship and then what it should actually possess. That actually people actually do not define their own relationships now. It either has to look like Caesar's relationship, whereby if they're on the cruise boat, we should be there too. That's how the relationship should be. If Caesar is actually flying tomorrow, that's where we should be. So it actually has narrowed down the element of bringing about love in the relationship, bringing about the emotional support in the relationship, bringing about the most important things in the relationship, whereby I'm there for you, you are there for me, and we don't see those. We don't see those because the only things that it has actually projected in our eyes, and the only things that we feel that we see on a daily basis, is the glitz and glamour of it. And that's where maybe people who I don't know if I'm allowed to say weak-minded actually fall for that more, because now their lives is also surrounded or maybe being punctuated with that narrative of it should be glitz and glamour. If it's not that, then I don't want it by my side, or I'm not willing to actually work. As some would say that I'm not Bob the Builder. I will not actually build somebody. I'm not actually going to be building with somebody. So they want a finished product, and that's where the things end up tending to go wrong. Like, that falls back to our question: what do you bring to the table? So if the table is already full and somebody's just there to feast on it, I might actually change my mind one day and say, you know what, I don't actually want to feast with you on this table. Let me go find the next person that I can actually feast on with this on this table. So I think, yeah, the glitz and glam of it has actually spoiled everything when coming to relationship, love, and yeah.
Wow. I love when you say we no longer define our own relationships ourselves. And that's true. You know, from social media to the television shows, telenovelas that we're watching, we are expecting the same kind of drama and the same kind of romance in real life, forgetting that it is honestly someone's imagination, exaggerated imagination. And I think Usiza will understand that as a writer, that when you're putting words on paper, the emotion has to be exaggerated for the reader to be interested. So I love what you said about we can no longer define our own relationships and what we want. But I want to hear your thoughts on this, Ntwetsi, this question.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think, yeah, social media has broken like other relationships, well, I guess, because then I feel like people post to be seen, or to impress other people. You just want to post what's perfect. You won't post like the flaws and all that. You just want to post perfection, like, okay, I'm perfect. I can travel. I have a beautiful partner or successful partner. Clear man. I feel like in that way, then it creates sort of like comparison. You think, okay, those people are perfect. I want to live like them. That time, you don't know how they even got there. You don't even know if whatever they're posting or they're portraying is real. Is it true even? Or they just posting what's on the side, perfection. So yeah, I think that nje would break or has broken a couple of relationships, I think.
Okay,
So
interesting. Very interesting. I'm interested in finding out from you guys. Obviously, the opinions and thoughts you have today are based on where you've been and the experiences that you've had. How has your definition of this question, or rather the way that you interpret this question, changed or evolved over time? And what was the turning point for you evolving from a certain perspective or a certain point of view to a point of view that you have now, if it has evolved or changed over time? For example, I mean, there was a time where tall, dark, and handsome was it for me. If you're not that, definitely not. The emotional part of things. Obviously, he must be, one of the doctors or lawyers of the world. But over time, obviously, with maturity and experience, you tend to see it's okay. That's not really all that. So, Sizwe?
Yeah, true, true. I even with myself, yellow bone, and that changed. Now, light, dark skin girls, and also that changed. Then, you know, growing up made me realize that, let's take this whole idea of the table, what you bring to the table. Let's move it from not what you bring to the table, but how you serve at the table. May I please have that sauce? May I please have that? So for me, it's more like how I serve. Do I serve commitment in a relationship? Do I serve love in a relationship? Do I serve compassion in a relationship? Because when we talk about what you bring to the table, it's almost like if I don't have any material things to bring, then I've got nothing to bring to the table. And relationships are mostly about the human, how how a human can serve the next human. Because having a baby, making a baby has nothing to do with materialistic things. Showing someone love has nothing to do with what car you drive. You could be driving in a beautiful car and you are sad in the car. You could be living in a beautiful big house and there's no peace in that house. But how I give you peace, how I serve you as a partner, that's how I started seeing it, that let's move away from what you bring, but how are you serving me? Because relationship is all about serving. Love is about serving each other. Because when you talk about bring, you're gonna be in a point where you just want to receive, and where you're gonna start pointing. But I've done this and that, and you only did this. Do you see now we start weighing love? And how do you really weigh a feeling? Can you weigh a feeling?
That's deep. I've never looked at it that way. The serving part. I think that's just one of the things we do tend to overlook. Well, it's okay. Now we're at the table. What now? But that's a really good perspective, Caesar. Thank you for that, Monji.
Yeah, I think to just continue where Caesar is left off to say, is it still the feeling though when we're questioning it on a generational basis? Some might say yes, depending on how you perceive love to be. Some might say it's based on mutual agreement, and some might say, what do I actually stand to gain out of it? So,
Mm.
the individual who actually sitting on the table, it's what
You're
best
breaking.
supports a narrative at that moment in time. So, if I'm looking for, we're still together.
You're
If
just
I'm still
breaking,
looking for
Monji.
love and affection at that moment, I am.
Yes, and frozen.
Okay. Okay. Let's
Okay,
see
so
if
I'm
it's
gonna
not
go
giving
to
me justice
Ndwezi
today.
while you just quickly sort that out.
Okay. For me, well, when I see something on social media that I like, I get inspired and I'm like, you know what? I also want to travel so much, see the world. I wish one day I could. Not that I'm like pressured, ne? And then it goes to a point where I'm like, how are we saving between me and my partner? What's important to us? How is our relationship? Is it the same? Not that I'm comparing, but how do we show up? How does he show up for me? How do I show up? What's important? What are we focusing on? What's the goal? Because definitely in a relationship there will be that thing, or you know what, we're focusing on this, and then if it makes us happy, then yeah, we're good.
Mm.
Yeah, if that
And
answers.
obviously now, has that perception evolved over time? Have you always thought like this, or have you had to go through some experiences to be where you are in terms of how you view this question?
So before I would think, okay, maybe I also have to like pressure my partner. Can we travel? Can we go to Durban? Can we go to Cape Town? Then maturity kicked in. Or you know what? You are not those people. Watch your relationship, see how it goes. Can you do that? In your time, you'll do it if you need it at the time. So then after that, then I realized, you know what, my relationship is my relationship. Our relationship is their relationship. So I'll do what suits us, what suits my relationship.
But guys, I think there was something Usizwe said about being honest about what is expected, especially for men in relationships. Um, Obviously, we wanna do the trips, we wanna make the memories, we wanna share certain experiences together. How we then find the balance between obviously wanting all those experiences and memories, and those experiences and memories do require money, and as much as obviously emotional support, emotional maturity and growth is everything that we want our partners to be. But how do you find the balance between the two? Love and care is not going to take us to Cape Town, you know. So I mean, but also how have you guys navigated all that, finding the balance? Caesar?
I haven't got to a point where I found someone where I found the balance, you know. But I can say, mentally, I can say, this is our relationship. It's not mine. This is our table. No one owns the table. We both co-own the table, and the kids are our host. Our guests. Sorry. We host the kids, and they just guests because one day they're going to leave. So we need to find a balance that today I can pull up the weight. Tomorrow you might pull up the weight. So if we can't be patient with each other, like Ntwa said, it can't
Duetty.
work. Ntwetsi said it can't work because if you don't know the purpose of why you're getting into a relationship, don't get into one. Because let's rather all get in plural relationships, because what social media shows us is what we fall in love with. So rather fall in love, rather search for that person you love on social media. And if that person does not love you, stay by yourself up until that person actually notices you. Because you're gonna take what you see on social media and bring it to me, Caesar. And I'm not that person that you like. Yes, you might like those Cape Town trips with them, but let's be realistic about this. Can we afford Cape Town today, or we can afford it next year? If it's
Mm,
next year, Cape Town never changes. We can go next year. You know, life is
mm,
too long to try and rush through. It's not a sprint, you know.
mm.
So for me, I think that we can find a balance by understanding why are we getting to a relationship in the first place.
Okay.
You know.
All right. And Duetty, what about you?
I think how we can find balance is communication. If I want us to go to Cape Town now, can we talk about it? Can we sit down? Like, can we afford this? When can we be able to do this? Because it's not like now that I want to go to Cape Town, we must go now, we must go tomorrow. We have to sit down and check maybe finances. Can we do it? So if we can communicate that, you know what, we can't afford that now, then we understand each other. Uguti, you know what, we can't do it now. So we'll have to wait for 4 months or 5 months, for example. And then it also goes with also being patient, because sometimes my partner, or I would tell him, you know what, I would love to contribute, but right now I won't be able to like contribute towards the trip. But can we be patient enough? Maybe 7 months, we can go through that. So yeah, I think it takes that patience, Nji, to go through that, yeah, and understanding.
Okay. Mondli, did you hear the question? Caesar spoke about the purpose of you being at the table, right? And it made me think about this conversation around gender roles and how we are we have evolved with time, but we are still very backwards in terms of who should be paying for these things and who should be chipping in for these things. And obviously, there obviously needs to be a bigger conversation around that, and that's why I feel the whole clutter of this question comes from, where it's like, why would I be paying for a trip to? I'm the woman in this relationship, and things like that. And I guess that would be my next thought, and I would like to hear what you guys think on the expectation gender roles plays behind this question, and what is expected and what society has put out there to be expected, who's paying for these things, who should be paying for it, and how we can shift from that to a more modernized mindset. Caesar, let me hear your thoughts on that. The gender roles and what society is expecting with regards to this question.
My take on this, I'm still a traditional man. I believe man is a provider, and man should protect his family, and a man should
Right.
be able to do all the things that a man is expected to do. But reality is the narrative has changed. Back in the days, women didn't go to work. Women just stayed at home and looked
Right.
after the kids and cooked. So as men also, we can't expect our women to do the very same thing that our grandparents used to do. Your woman comes back from work and you still expect her to cook, expect her to forget about her own life and focus on you. It has changed. That has changed. So we also need
Right.
to be flexible as humans, that life is constantly evolving. So we also need to evolve with times. And unfortunately, today's times, a traditional man is not an ideal man in today's life. Today's time,
Okay.
50-50, it's what's needed. Even though it might sound, but that's not from a man. Unfortunately, the narrative or reality has built that man and woman can be the same thing. Because if you look at sports, what sport can men do that women can't do?
Mm.
We do everything now. And you find, even with that, that's why you find, okay, I don't want to move away from the question, but yeah, that's what I wanted to say, that unfortunately, the traditional man that we're looking for and the traditional woman, those days are gone. Those days are gone.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Mondli, let's hear your thoughts on this particular question. We've been losing and getting you. Let's hear what you think about this question before we lose you again.
Okay, can you please just run me quickly through the question?
All right. So basically, the question was, how do traditional uh, traditional gender roles um, in relationships. I spoke about who's supposed to be paying for things and who and what society is expecting the woman to contribute to these experiences and everything.
I think with our, or let me say with where we are, we've lost it. We've lost the gender role, easy way to put it. We've lost the gender role narrative, whereby each and every individual now has a role to play. If I can't play it, the next person is supposed to play it. And if the next person is not playing it, I'm supposed to be playing it. At first, men weren't supposed to, traditional men, if you can so speak, were not supposed to actually change nappies, diapers, and actually feed the baby at whatever certain age. But now we do it at will, not at will at times. Sometimes we get left with the babies and they say to you, it's also your baby, play your role. So the dynamics of everything when coming to gender role is totally changed. Like at first, we wouldn't find a guy standing in front of the pots, but now we do. At first, you wouldn't find a woman allowing their guy to actually stand in front of the pots. I just think it's a dynamic of your relationship that you guys have set as you guys actually built that certain table. If in our relationship everything is based on 50-50, then it shall be. And if our relationship is built on I'll take care of the financial parts, you keep the home warm, that's how it shall be. Because basically it's what we define as our relationship and what's going to actually make it stand in the long term. So traditional roles, not per se, working together to actually make the table stand in whatever storm that might come. It's basically got to do with the communication from both ends. That if we're saying today that our table is actually going to be built with us actually providing as much as we don't look at how much I've provided in order for us to actually set this table to be strong, then that's how it's going to be based. But whenever coming to certain things, we're still going to actually look at but this kitchen shouldn't actually, when somebody actually walks into the house, like if you are with your man and somebody walks into the house and there's dishes there, the first person that they're going to actually question is you, like why into a house at or whatever the case. And if you actually driving a dirty car today, I'm going to be looked at as your man, like why wouldn't you take the car to the car wash as the man? So gender roles are there, but do we still actually look and say I'm supposed to be doing that? It actually is, it's just relationship dependent. So I think that's where I'm at when coming to gender roles and the generational detour that it has taken. So yeah.
Okay. Betsy?
Okay, thank you. I see I was struggling. So, for me, I think the society has portrayed that thing that men should pay. But in my opinion, I think if it's supposed to be 50-50, it must be that. Or if a guy needs to take a bigger portion, it needs to be that. It just have to be like understood that, okay, communication was done, we agreed that okay, I'll take care of the financial side in this much, or I'll take care of non-financial part if it's that. So for me, it needs to be 50-50 if it has to, or we need to share, because gone are those days where women are sitting at home being housewives, cleaning and cooking. We are also going to work, and if a man can pay, a woman must pay. For me, if one is not standing, the next person should. So, yeah,
Which goes back to what Monji was saying about us, both of us making sure the table is standing.
is standing,
Um,
yes.
yeah. Um, as this is a very interesting topic and it's also very broad, but we are nearing the end of it. I just want to hear your final thoughts or your final sort of a sign out moment with regards to this topic. I'm going to start with you, Cesare and Doetsi, and then I'm going to end with Mondi, just as I'm about to close. Um, just to hear your final thoughts and obviously your where you stand and with regards to this question.
My final thought is the purpose of the table is not to display what we have, you know, maybe display as if we are better than our neighbors. The purpose is to be able to understand that we are here to serve each other. And after serving each other, we're here to serve our kids, you know, and like Mundi said, we need to make sure that the table stands, you know, and not put the weight on the one person, like we did say previously before closing off that the traditional man and woman is gone now. You know, we can't hold on to that anymore. So we need to move with times, and times are saying we need to be a team, and a team works together, and we all pull the weight, you know, together, just like our legs. One goes forward, the other at the back, and pulls the one at the back, you know, just like that. So
Right.
that's my closing point.
Okay. Right. Ntwetsi?
For me, the purpose is to understand and serve each other, ensure that both parties are happy, ensure that the table stands, it mustn't fall. Like I said before, if someone is falling, I have to make sure I pick you up, communicate everything to ensure that the table stands and work together to make it work. Unfortunately, we can't even bring externals to help. It must be about us, for us, what we want.
All right.
Yeah.
Mondli?
All I can say is that define yours. Define yours. Make sure that you don't have, but in the sense of you defining yours, do not abandon your masculinity energy. No matter where you go, no matter what you stand for, define yours. It shouldn't actually be altered or actually perceived from the next person's point of view. Make sure that it's yours, because when it falls upon your shoulders. When it works upon your feet. So if we're gonna keep on moving, like Caesar said, one feet helps the other, it's gotta be yours. If we're gonna carry this, it's gotta be on our shoulders. So we best define ours to make it actually it's like drawing a picture. We're the ones that actually should actually define the colors that are gonna go into the picture in order for us to make it picture perfect. So I think it's one of
Right.
those things whereby if we define ours and if it's picture perfect, and the world will see it, the world will see it. If we don't have to actually put colors that the next person actually perceive that our picture should actually be drawn like this. We draw our own picture, we define our own picture, and we make it work. That's it.
Guys, but we are at the end of our conversation, which was a powerful and interesting one. I feel like I grew a few inches in terms of mental capacity. The things that I've been able to sort of learn from you guys. Thank you so much for agreeing to honor this invite, for your honesty and for your insights. These type of conversations really help us reflect, grow, and obviously grow our mental capacity and in the way that we view things, and rethink things and also expand our connections. So thank you so much for joining in on this conversation, and you know, maybe next time we'll call you guys for another topic. I don't know, but yeah. But also to everyone that is watching, thank you for listening. Please make sure that you engage. If there's any questions that you have, or if there's any inside experiences that you want to share with regards to this particular topic, please do so in the comment section. And if this conversation made you think differently about what you bring to the table and how you view and see others, then we've obviously had the right conversation and we've obviously done something right today. And, you know, if we've changed one person's mind, then I feel we've done our job. So I'll see you guys on our next provoking conversation. Bye from myself and my panel. Goodbye.